Hey everybody, I am Kirsten Weiss, and I am the author of a bunch of cozy mysteries and witch cozy mysteries. And a couple years ago, I took first, today I want to talk about the Fisher King. I'm going to talk about the Antero a bit, so I've got some sort of news there, and anything else that comes up. And if you have any questions, please post them in the comments. And I'm actually looking at two different cameras because I'm doing a Facebook Live and a Substack Live at the same time. So if I'm going back and forth, I hope that's doesn't end up looking weird. Anyways, a couple years ago, I came across a lecture about Parsifal as the fool in tarot, and I was super curious about it. So I attended the lecture, and unfortunately, I didn't take any notes on who gave the lecture because I would really like to give this person credit for telling me about the Fisher King myth, or basically explaining the Fisher King myth to me, because it's showed up since in most of my mystery school novels. The Fisher King is an Arthurian legend, and it's basically told in three acts. The first act is about the Fisher King himself when he is a young prince, and he's out hunting with his squires and knights, and he gets separated from them. Night falls and he sees a campfire. So he goes to the campfire, but nobody's there. There is, however, a delicious looking salmon on a spit over the campfire, and he is really hungry. But he's a good guy, so he's waiting and waiting and waiting. Finally, he can't take it anymore, and he grabs up the fish and takes a big bite. The fish is searing hot, so not only does he burn his mouth terribly and spit out the fish, but then he kind of stumbles around and loses his balance and falls into the fire and receives a terrible wound in his thigh. He passes out. The next morning, his knights come across him and they take him back to the castle, but he never recovers from the wound. And because he's unable to fulfill his kingly duties, he just fishes all day and his kingdom becomes a wasteland. So, at Act 2, Sir Percival is a young knight and he's on a quest for the Holy Grail. He comes across the wasteland and he comes across the fisherman, and he asks him, "Is there a place I can stay for the night?" And the fisherman says, "Yeah, you can stay at that castle up there." So Percival goes to the castle, he's taken in, and in the courtyard, he sees this strange procession with people holding a cup. And he goes to his room, he goes to dinner, and he meets the fisherman and discovers that the fisherman he met is actually the king. And the king is suffering from a terrible wound. Well, Parzival is a young man, and he's very self-conscious. So he doesn't ask any questions. He doesn't ask him about his wound. He doesn't even ask him about the weird parade he saw in the courtyard with what might have been the Holy Grail. He goes to bed. The next morning he wakes up and the castle is completely deserted, so he leaves. Act 3. Parzival is a much older and wiser knight. He's been doing his knightly thing around Europe for years now, and he returns to the wasteland. He finds the castle, he finds the king still fishing. He's again taken into the castle and gets a room. He again sees the same procession with what may or may not be the Holy Grail, and he sits down to dinner. But this time he asks a question, and he asks a very important question. He asks, "Whom does the Grail serve?" And then a voice rings out, "The Grail serves the king." The spell is broken. The Fisher King is healed. The kingdom is also healed, and Parzival wins the Holy Grail. He becomes the keeper of the Grail. So this whole story is a little bit weird, and if it is confusing, it doesn't make much sense. It didn't make much sense to me for a long time either until somebody explained it to me. So the first act, with the young prince going hunting, he stumbles across the campfire. Well, he's drawn to the light. What does light represent? Light represents good. It represents the divine. It represents mystical experience. So he's drawn to it. He sees a fish. A fish is an obvious symbol, a Christian symbol of Christ. He doesn't take it. Nobody's there. It doesn't belong to him. Finally, he can't stand it anymore, and he grabs it up and takes a bite. And he injures himself, and he falls into the fire. This fire, which was supposed to be something good, actually burns him very badly because he's young, he's inexperienced. This wasn't his fish. He wasn't supposed to take it. The time was not right for the Fisher King. So he's taken back and his wound never heals, and he's becomes a fisherman who's just fishing every day in the unconscious over and over and over again, trying to figure out what happened to him, trying to reclaim that he wants to get to the mystical experience without all the burning. He wants to understand it, but he is not fulfilling his kingly duties. He's not interacting. He's just sitting out by himself fishing. And so everything around him, his kingdom, falls apart. Now we have Parzival. Again, Parzival's a young man, and he's self-conscious. It's all about Parzival at this point because he's young and he doesn't know any better. He doesn't ask any questions because he's embarrassed to ask questions. He's been told, don't ask dumb questions. He's afraid of asking the wrong question. And so he doesn't say anything. He doesn't reach out to this king who is in pain. He doesn't ask about the kingdom, and he doesn't ask about the grail. Third act, he's more mature, he comes back. It's not all about Parzival now. Now it's about the kingdom, it's about the king, it's about others, and he is there to be of service, which was the whole point of Arthur's round table with his knights. They weren't there to dominate the peasants, they were there to protect the peasants. They were there to be of service to the kingdom and to the king. So Parzival asks the crucial question, whom does the Grail serve? He doesn't ask, what can the Grail do? Or why haven't you used the Holy Grail to heal yourself? Or is that the Holy Grail? He asks, whom does it serve? And then the answer comes back, it serves the king. Well, what does that mean? Well, it obviously doesn't serve the Fisher King, because if it did serve the Fisher King, then the Fisher King would have been healed. No, it's serving the Divine King. So again, we're going back to the mystical experience. So what does all that mean? Once that question is asked, everything unlocks. The spell is broken. The king has been ignoring his kingdom. He took this experience, which he wasn't ready for, and it became all about him and figuring out, trying to have that mystical connection and trying to understand it. And so he neglected the world around him. Parzival, in a sense, did the same thing. He was all about him. He didn't ask the right question. And so he left this kingdom in peril. Finally, he comes back. Now that he's asked the right question, whom does the Grail serve? What is this? Basically, what's the point of this Grail? What's it doing? And the answer is to serve, it serves the king, but what does the king want? The king wants us on earth to be interacting with each other. It wants us to be doing our duty here. It wants us to cultivate our kingdom that we have here on this earth. So what does all of this mean? Well, weirdly, the reason this story stuck with me so much is because I had a mystical experience when I was a teenager, which was way too young for it. And I really got hung up on it. And it kind of set off this long quest through what got me into tarot and all sorts of other things. And the answer, of course, is you're not supposed to get hung up on the question, because you will never get the answer as a human to these giant mystical questions. They're just too big. You can learn some stuff, sure, and I wouldn't ignore it, but the point is to take what you've learned, to take your experience out into the world and to serve others. And I'm gonna have to look at my notes to see if I've missed anything here. Yeah, okay. So this struck me personally, but I've also started writing about it in my mystery school series. So in my first book, Legacy of the Witch, the heroine April is hung up on a kind of parallel question. She doesn't have any mystical experience behind her, but she is a very smart person, and like a lot of very smart people, she prioritized thought over action, which is kind of what the Fisher King was doing as well. He was thinking, thinking, thinking instead of tending to his kingdom, and so everything was falling apart. In April's case, she's convinced that she can't start her career as an artist until she completes her master's degree, but she's not actually learning anything. She's not becoming a better artist by going through this degree. She is just putting things off, and because she's scared to take the leap. So that kind of parallels the Fisher King. Whispers of the Witch was the most obvious, where the heroine there, Mitzi, actually did have a spiritual experience when she was young and got hung up on it and did a lot of seeking but never found anything. And then she finally understands at the end what the lesson is. The book I'm working on now, Refuge of the Witch, again, somebody's hung up in their thoughts. The heroine had a tragedy in her family, which she was too young to even remember or really experience. But her whole life, she's just been hung up in the question of what happened and why it happened and how could this have happened. And so she's never really lived. Shadow of the Witch, a similar thing. The heroine is hung up on the question of how her sister died, and that question stops her from living and her from tending to her own garden and developing her relationship with her son. So, the Fisher King, there are a lot of, because it's a myth, it's very big, which means there's a lot of different versions of it, and there's a ton of different interpretations of it, which is kind of part of what I love about this. And I think it makes a really good um, hook for a book. Anyways, so that is The Fisher King. Now, on to Untarot news. I was told you I was going to do an Untarot draw. I'm going to do an Untarot draw for us. For everybody listening, watching now, even if you're not watching live, here is your Untarot card for the day or the week. Let's just say for the week. Da, 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 da. What is it? Ooh, it is Guru, which is actually a warning card about letting yourself kind of, God, it's kind of hooks in with the Fisher King a little bit. Warning of letting yourself be controlled and who's controlling us, and not just not just actual gurus, but there's the guru of the media, there's the guru of society. So it's just kind of a, who's manipulating you today? Who's trying to manipulate you today? Because it happens a lot. Oh, hey, Sonia. Yes. So Sonia says, my logic, ego mind definitely gets in the way of me doing what my soul wants me to do and leads to procrastination. It is such an easy trap to fall into. And so many of us have it. I think especially smart people. It's very easy to talk ourselves out of actually taking action. Okay, what else did I want to say? Oh, all right. So I've already talked a little bit about Refuge of the Witch. I've only got a few more chapters to go in the first draft of that, and I do think I can get that out by, I'm hoping, July. My book Big Deal is coming out in April. I'm just waiting on the book cover. I'm having an actual, like, originally drawn book cover this time. And my artist is being very meticulous, which part of me loves, but I want my book cover too. It's going to be great. So that's exciting. So hopefully that will be out in April. And also, I have been playing around with Untarot cards. I have been making basically a Halloween extension pack for the deck. And I printed them out as postcards. So this is not, so you can see it's a postcard on one side. This is not the actual shape or the glossiness or anything like that. I'm still not sure if I'm going to actually publish these or not. I think I can do them much more inexpensively than I did the actual Antero deck, which is good because these are only 13 cards. Lucky 13 for Halloween. So I don't know if people are interested in that. If anybody wants a postcard and they're on now, if you can DM me, we will talk, and I'll be happy to send you one of these limited edition postcards. Limited edition is in, I just made a bunch on Moo. So there we've got the graveyard card. And yes, I did actually think of real, like, esoteric meanings that go with the Antero themes for these cards. Temptation, ghosts. And this one, I just think this girl looks so much like Wednesday Addams that I couldn't resist this. Exclamation. And then Cauldron. I love the redheaded witch with the cat. I don't know if you can see the cat. So those are just a few of them. I think I printed out 7 of them. I've got 13 so far. So let me know what you think of those. And what else? I think that is all. So thank you for stopping by for my Substack and Facebook Live. I apologize once again for looking at different cameras. Now that I'm looking at the video, it is a little bit weird, but experiments. I think I will be doing this at least once a month. I might do it every 2 weeks, but I don't want to talk unless I actually have something vaguely interesting to say. And usually I'm writing, and well, anyways, have a wonderful week, and I hope to see you next time.